Have you ever noticed how some men start out calm, polite, and even seem like real good guys? But over time, they become bitter, aggressive, almost unrecognizable? Many people point the finger and say, "He's changed. He's become a monster." But the reality is quite different. No one is born a monster. What happens is that good men are gradually shaped by the invisible and corrosive manipulation of toxic relationships. If you want to better understand how this happens and how to protect yourself from this cycle, stay with me until the end. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next eye-opening content. 1. The beginning. Kindness used as bait. A good man truly believes in love. He enters a relationship with an open heart, willing to give his best. He makes small gestures every day, preparing a surprise, listening attentively, giving up something just to see his partner smile. For him, this is natural, because he believes that love is caring. But in a toxic relationship, this purity is weaponized. What was once affection becomes obligation. What was once generosity becomes a demand. The partner realizes that the more they give, the more they take. Each token of love, instead of being valued, becomes a new step toward manipulation. The partner stops being grateful and starts demanding, as if kindness were an eternal duty. Little by little, he feels like he's never enough. No matter how hard he tries, the feeling is empty. The love that should be an exchange becomes consumption, a constant drain on his energy, patience, and even his very identity. It's precisely at this point of exhaustion, when he begins to sense something is wrong, that a silent shift begins to occur within him. But it's not yet the final transformation. What comes next is even more profound. So don't forget to leave a like if you're enjoying our content. 2. The cycle of silent humiliation. A good man doesn't lose his temper immediately. When he realizes something is wrong, his first reaction is to seek dialogue. He tries to talk, explain, and find a balance. He believes that if he speaks patiently, everything can be resolved. But in a toxic relationship, what the other party wants isn't understanding. It's domination. They're not interested in listening, only in undermining your trust. That's when those sharp phrases emerge, seemingly simple, but cutting deep like invisible knives. You're not a real man. Or even, no one would have patience with you anymore. These words, repeated over and over, erode his identity. At first, he tries to ignore them, thinking it's just a bad moment. But over time, each humiliation builds inside him like small embers. And with each silence, he swallows. This fire grows. On the outside, he seems the same, polite, reserved, and eager to avoid arguments. But inside, a volcano is already simmering. A volcano of resentment, of pent-up anger, of unexpressed pain. And like every volcano, there comes a day when you can no longer remain dormant. And when this volcano awakens, the man who once wanted only peace begins to change. But this change doesn't happen all at once. The next step is even more dangerous, because it's when he begins to believe the lies he's been told. But first, I want your comment. Have you ever experienced any kind of humiliation in a relationship? Leave it in the comments. 3. The birth of resentment. Resentment doesn't arise suddenly. It's like a slow poison, building up inside a good person each time their kindness is ignored, or worse yet, used as a weapon against them. At first, it's just a pang of frustration. Why isn't anything I do enough? But over time, this pang becomes a constant burden, an open wound that never heals. Good men, who only wanted to love and be loved, begin to feel something different. Anger. Anger at the injustice of always giving and never receiving. Anger at the manipulation disguised as affection. Anger at themselves for believing the false promises. This anger, if it doesn't find a place to be understood or healed, grows. It molds itself in silence until it transforms into hostility. What was once an easy smile is now a heavy silence. The spontaneous embrace turns into distance. The sparkle in the eyes fades and gives way to a cutting coldness. It's at this point that the transformation takes a darker tone, because when tenderness gives way to coldness, that man's essence begins to change. But the real danger isn't just coldness. It's when that coldness deepens and turns into something even more deadly: contempt. 4. From love to contempt. A man who has truly loved and been broken inside is never quite the same again. He doesn't just build defenses, he erects entire walls. At first, this barrier seems like a form of survival, protecting himself from pain, avoiding further wounds, not allowing anyone to manipulate him anymore. But these walls don't know how to choose who stays out. They don't just keep the toxic person out. They keep everyone out. Family, friends, even people who could bring genuine love end up being viewed with suspicion. The heart that was once open becomes on constant alert. This man stops believing. He begins to view every gesture of affection as if it were a hidden trap. Every sweet word seems suspicious. Every promise sounds like a lie. And when someone can no longer trust, the love that remains turns into something hard, harsh. This is how good men, who were once tender and devoted, become cold. Distance becomes protection. Aggression often becomes their only shield, not because they were born that way, but because they were taught by pain that love can destroy. And the cruelest thing is that, in this process, it's not just one man who gets lost. The cycle continues, repeating itself in other stories, in other relationships, and with each turn, more hearts are dragged into this spiral. 5. The cycle that turns victims into executioners. When a man goes through a toxic relationship, he doesn't emerge unscathed. He carries with him invisible scars that weigh far more heavily than any physical scar. At first, he thinks he's just protecting himself, becoming tougher, more withdrawn. But without realizing it, that accumulated resentment begins to seep into his next relationships. It's like a poison he once received and now carries within himself. Only this poison doesn't stay put. It spreads. Harsher words, exaggerated distrust, cold gestures. All of this ends up affecting people who aren't to blame for the pain he experienced. And, little by little, yesterday's victim begins to act like today's executioner. Not because he was born bad, not because he was always that way, but because he was shaped by pain, by manipulation, by the silent cycle of emotional destruction. It's the repetition of a cruel pattern. Those who have been hurt learn to hurt, believing it's the only way to survive. But the question is there a way out of this cycle? Or is every good man one day doomed to lose himself to the same poison that destroyed him? The chance to break the cycle. Though it seems inevitable, this cycle doesn't have to be eternal. What separates a person who loses himself from one who is reborn is awareness. When he finally realizes that the pain he carries is not his fault, but rather the result of manipulation, a new possibility begins to emerge: healing. This healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, made up of daily choices. It's learning to set boundaries without losing your kindness. It's regaining confidence in yourself before trying to trust anyone else. It's understanding that being kind doesn't mean being weak. It means having the courage to remain true in a world that so often rewards deceit. Men who choose this path don't erase the past, but transform pain into learning. Instead of carrying the poison forward, they use their scars as a shield, not a weapon. And so, they are able not only to free themselves, but also to show others that kindness doesn't have to die at the hands of toxicity. But how, in practice, can a man take this step and rebuild his identity after so much destruction? This is the next secret you need to hear. Bonus tip: the power of recognizing the signs early. Many men fall into toxic relationships because they ignore small warning signs early on. A cruel joke, a belittling comment, an attempt to control something simple. It all seems normal or unimportant. But it's precisely in these details that the cycle begins. The tip is simple but powerful. Learn to recognize the signs before they escalate. If something makes you feel small, inferior, or constantly wrong, don't ignore it. The silence you accept today can become tomorrow's prison. Recognizing it early is key to avoiding a game that only hurts. Conclusion: the truth that sets you free. No man is born cold, aggressive, or bitter. They are shaped by the experiences, pain, and manipulation they face. But the truth is, the cycle can be broken. Being kind doesn't mean being weak, and trusting doesn't mean letting yourself be destroyed. It's possible to rebuild yourself, reclaim your identity, and most importantly, learn to protect yourself without losing what makes you unique, your essence. Men who understand this not only free themselves, but also become stronger, more aware, and more prepared to live true relationships. And if this topic resonates with you, be sure to subscribe to the channel right now. In the next videos, I'll show you how to spot these signs early on and how to shield your mind from the waso.